The first thing Brandon Hale did that morning was check his watch. Not because he was worried about being late, but because he loved knowing exactly how much time he had left to destroy someone. Courtroom 14B at the New York County Supreme Court was already warm with the quiet tension of money and power, polished wood, soft murmurs, the faint scent of floor cleaner and old paper. Brandon sat comfortably at the plaintiff's table in a custom charcoal suit that cost more than most people's rent, laughing low with the man beside him. Victor Klein didn't laugh much. He didn't need to. His reputation did it for him. Victor Klein was the kind of divorce attorney people whispered about in midtown bars. The kind who didn't just win cases. He erased people. Careers, reputations, bank accounts. Gone. Brandon leaned back in his chair, crossing one expensive leg over the other, eyes flicking toward the defense table. Empty, still empty. A slow, satisfied smile crept across his face. "She's not coming," Brandon murmured, adjusting his cufflinks. "I told you she'd break." Victor glanced at his tablet, unbothered. "It doesn't matter whether she comes or not. Her accounts were frozen Monday morning. No cash, no credit, no retainer, no lawyer." He said it like a grocery list. Brandon chuckled. "I almost feel bad. Almost." Across the aisle, Claire Hale sat alone. She looked smaller than Brandon remembered. Not because she had changed, but because the room was built to make people like her disappear. She wore a simple gray dress, the kind you keep because it once made you feel safe. Her hands were folded tightly in front of her, fingers laced together until her knuckles were pale. No files, no legal team, no whispering assistants, just her. Brandon leaned forward just enough for his voice to carry. "Look at her, Victor. 5 years of marriage and she shows up like this. Like she's waiting for a bus." Victor allowed himself a thin smile. "Focus. Judge Whitman doesn't enjoy theatrics." Brandon checked his watch again. "Relax. By lunch I'll be free. She'll be apartment hunting in Astoria." The bailiff's voice cut through the room. "All rise. The Honorable Judge Robert Whitman presiding." Everyone stood. Judge Whitman entered with the efficiency of a man who had seen everything and was impressed by none of it. He took his seat, adjusted his glasses, and opened the file. Case number 24 CV91E7, Hale versus Hale, preliminary hearing on asset division and spousal support. He looked up. "Mr. Klein, good morning." Victor stood smoothly. "Good morning, Your Honor. We're ready to proceed." The judge's gaze shifted to the other table. His brow creased. "Mrs. Hale," he said, "I see you're unaccompanied. Are you expecting counsel?" Claire stood slowly. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Yes, Your Honor, she's on her way." Brandon snorted before he could stop himself. Judge Whitman's eyes snapped to him. "Is something amusing, Mr. Hale?" Victor placed a hand on Brandon's arm. "Apologies, Your Honor. My client is under stress." "Control him," the judge replied flatly. Brandon stood, buttoning his jacket, playing contrite. "I just want fairness, Your Honor. My wife is confused. She has no income, no resources. I offered her a generous settlement, $50,000 in the Lexus." He turned to Claire, voice sharp. "You refused." Claire met his eyes. For a moment, Brandon almost faltered. Almost. "You don't have a lawyer because no one wants a charity case," he added. Judge Whitman slammed his gavel. "Enough. Mr. Klein?" Victor rose. "Your Honor, under Vargas versus State, we move to proceed. Mrs. Hale has had ample time to secure representation. We request a default judgment on asset division." The judge sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Mrs. Hale," he said, "if your attorney is not present, I must assume you are representing yourself. Given the complexity of this estate, that would be unwise." Claire didn't look at him. She was staring at the double doors at the back of the courtroom. "2 minutes," she said. "Please." Brandon leaned toward Victor. "She's bluffing." Judge Whitman lifted his gavel. "We cannot delay any further. We will proceed." The doors exploded open, not creaked, not opened, thrown wide. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Every head turned. A woman stood in the doorway. She wore a white tailored suit so sharp it seemed to cut the air around her. Her silver hair was styled into a precise bob. Dark sunglasses hit her eyes as she stepped forward, heels clicking against the marble floor with deliberate calm. Behind her walked three associates, briefcases in hand, moving like a formation. Victor Klein went pale. "No," he whispered. "That's not possible." Brandon frowned. "Who is that?" The woman stopped at the defense table. Slowly, she removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were ice. "Apologies for the delay," she said, voice smooth and unhurried. "I was filing emergency motions regarding Mr. Hale's offshore holdings. It took longer than expected." Silence crushed the room. Judge Whitman leaned forward. "Counsel, state your name." She placed a gold embossed card on the clerk's desk. "Madeline Prescott," she said, "Senior Managing Partner at Prescott & Crown, Washington, D.C." She turned slightly. "I am entering my appearance as counsel for the defendant." Then she looked directly at Brandon. "And I am her mother." The air vanished. Brandon's mouth opened, closed. Your mother," he stammered. "You said she was gone." Claire lifted her chin. "I said she was gone from my life," she said softly. "Not dead." Madeline sat beside her daughter, opening her briefcase with a calm snap. "This is business," she said quietly. "We'll hug later." Victor Klein swallowed hard. "Ms. Prescott," he managed, "I didn't realize you were admitted in New York." "I'm admitted in New York, California, D.C., and before the International Court of Justice," Madeline replied, not looking at him. "But today I'm handling something personal." She stood. "Your Honor," she said, "the motion for default judgment is denied. The prenup is void due to coercion. The assets are misrepresented, and Mr. Hale has committed perjury." Brandon surged to his feet. "That's a lie!" Judge Whitman slammed his gavel. "Sit down." Madeline smiled, not kindly. "We have text messages," she continued, "threats, financial manipulation, and $24 million hidden through Hale Capital." Victor's pen clattered to the floor. Brandon felt the room tilt. This wasn't supposed to happen. He looked at Claire. For the first time, she wasn't shrinking. She was watching him, and she wasn't afraid anymore. The judge cleared his throat. "Ms. Prescott, please proceed." Madeline turned slightly toward Claire, placing a hand over hers. "Brandon Hale thought silence meant weakness," she said. "He forgot something." She looked back at him. "Silence is just the moment before the storm." And as Brandon sat there, heart hammering, he realized, too late, that the story he thought was ending was only just beginning. The courtroom didn't breathe. It waited. Brandon Hale sat frozen at the plaintiff's table, his spine stiff, his palms damp against the polished wood. The confidence that had carried him in that morning was gone, stripped away in seconds by a woman he hadn't planned for, a past he thought he'd buried, and a voice that spoke with absolute certainty. Madeline Prescott stood at the center of the room like she owned it. Not loudly, not dramatically. She didn't need to. "Your Honor," she said calmly, "before opposing counsel attempts to regroup, I'd like to clarify one thing for the record." Judge Whitman nodded. "Go ahead, Ms. Prescott." Madeline turned slightly, just enough for Brandon to see her profile. "Mr. Hale's claim that my client has no access to funds was not an accident. It was strategy. He froze joint accounts to ensure she could not retain counsel, then attempted to secure a default judgment while mocking her in open court." She paused. "That alone speaks volumes about character." Victor Klein stood abruptly. "Objection. Argumentative." Judge Whitman raised a hand. "Overruled. Continue." Brandon's throat tightened. Madeline reached into her briefcase and placed a thick binder on the defense table. The sound echoed louder than it should have. "This," she said, "is a forensic breakdown of Hale Capital, Hale Holdings, LLC, and 3 shell entities registered in the Cayman Islands." Victor's face drained of color. Brandon shot him a look. "You said this was clean." Victor didn't answer. Madeline flipped a page. "Mr. Hale declared a net worth of $8 million. That was false." She looked directly at Brandon now. "The actual figure is closer to $24 million. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Judge Whitman leaned forward. "Ms. Prescott, are you asserting concealment of marital assets?" "I'm asserting documented concealment," Madeline replied. "Funds were transferred over 5 years into offshore accounts in a Swiss private bank. then rerouted through Hale Capital to appear as separate corporate income. Brandon jumped to his feet. That's business income. She never worked a day in her life. Claire flinched. Madeline didn't. Judge Whitman slammed his gavel. Mr. Hale, one more outburst and you will be held in contempt. Madeline took one step closer to Brandon. Mr. Hale, she said evenly, do you know who drafted the spousal coercion standards adopted by New York State? Brandon blinked. What does that have to do with anything? I did, Madeline said. In 1998. She slid another document across the table. And according to this affidavit, you threatened to cut off medical funding for Claire's grandmother and harm her cat if she didn't sign the prenuptial agreement the night before your wedding. The room gasped. That's a lie, Brandon shouted. She's making it up. Madeline nodded slightly. That's what men like you always say. She turned to the judge. Exhibit C, text messages recovered from cloud storage Mr. Hale believed he had erased. Judge Whitman read silently. His jaw tightened. Victor Klein's hands trembled as he flipped through his own copy. Your Honor, Victor stammered, we haven't had time to review this evidence. Madeline smiled, slow and cold. You attempted to end this case in 10 minutes. You don't get to complain about time. The judge looked up. Ms. Prescott, what are you requesting? Madeline straightened. Immediate freezing of all assets under Mr. Hale's control, pending full forensic audit. And I'd like to call Mr. Hale as a hostile witness. Brandon's heart slammed into his ribs. Victor leaned toward him, whispering harshly, You have to comply. Brandon took the stand. The oath felt heavier than he expected. Madeline didn't bring papers to the podium. She rested her hands on the wood and looked at him like a teacher watching a failing student. Mr. Hale, she began, you mentioned traffic earlier, that Claire is disorganized. Is that why you handled all finances? Yes, Brandon said quickly. She doesn't understand numbers. She paints, volunteers. I protected our future. Our future, Madeline repeated. Is that why you purchased a condo in Brickell last March under Hale Holdings? Brandon hesitated. Investment property. Strange, Madeline said, because credit card statements show nursery furniture and a diamond bracelet purchased days later. Victor stood. Objection, relevance. Judge Whitman shook his head. Overruled. Answer. Brandon swallowed. I don't know what she's talking about. Madeline's eyes flicked to Claire, then back to Brandon. We'll return to the woman living there later, she said softly. Let's discuss Apex Ventures. Brandon stiffened. You declared income of $400,000 last year, Madeline continued, yet a wire transfer of $2 million entered a Swiss account controlled by Apex on the same day. She leaned closer. You bought untraceable cryptocurrency, stored on a cold wallet, secured in a Chase Bank safe deposit box. Brandon's face went white. How do you know that? Madeline smiled faintly. Because finding money is what I do. Silence crushed the room. You didn't declare it, she continued. You hid it, and you mocked my daughter for clipping coupons while you played millionaire. Brandon snapped. It's my money, he shouted. I earned it. She contributed nothing. The words hung there. Ugly. Final. Judge Whitman's voice dropped dangerously low. Mr. Hale, did you just admit to intentionally hiding assets to prevent equitable distribution? Brandon opened his mouth, closed it. Madeline stepped back. No further questions? She returned to Claire, placing a hand over hers. Claire was crying silently, but her shoulders were no longer slumped. Victor Klein stared at the table. Then he began packing his briefcase. What are you doing? Brandon hissed. Victor stood. Your Honor, I move to withdraw as counsel. Brandon lunged. You can't quit. The bailiff intervened. Judge Whitman glared. You will remain until this hearing concludes. Victor sat, moving his chair away from Brandon. Madeline stood again. Your Honor, she said, I'd like to call my next witness. Judge Whitman sighed. Proceed. I call Paige Turner. The doors opened. A young woman stepped in. Nervous, beautiful, determined. Brandon whispered, No. Paige took the stand. I was his girlfriend, she said, for 2 years. And why did you end it this morning? Madeline asked gently. Because he told me he was going to destroy his wife. Leave her with nothing. He laughed about it. Claire covered her face. Paige continued, voice shaking but strong. He said she was stupid, that she deserved it. Madeline nodded. Thank you. Victor didn't cross-examine. Judge Whitman removed his glasses. Mr. Hale, he said, you have abused this court. He began issuing orders. Asset freeze, exclusive use of the marital residences, referral for perjury and fraud. Brandon felt the ground disappear beneath him. As the gavel fell, Claire stood taller than she had in years, and Brandon finally understood something terrifying. This wasn't about divorce anymore. This was about reckoning. The courtroom emptied slowly, as if the walls themselves needed time to absorb what had just happened. Brandon Hale remained seated long after Judge Whitman exited. His tie was crooked, his hands shook. The man who had walked in that morning believing he would walk out victorious now looked like someone who had misplaced his entire life and didn't know where to start looking. Across the aisle, Claire gathered her things quietly. She moved differently now, not rushed, not small. Madeline Prescott stood beside her, calm and composed, closing her briefcase with the same precise click she had used to open it. She glanced once at Brandon, not with anger, not with triumph, but with something far colder. Finality. Brandon pushed himself to his feet and staggered toward them. Claire, he rasped, please, you can't do this. Where am I supposed to go? Claire looked at him, and for the first time, there was no fear in her eyes. No anger either, just distance. Before she could speak, Madeline stepped forward, placing herself squarely between them like a wall. My daughter doesn't negotiate with criminals, she said evenly. If you need to speak, speak to my associate. She nodded to Evan Brooks, who handed Brandon a business card without meeting his eyes. Now move, Madeline said. You're blocking our exit. They walked past him. Claire didn't look back. On the courthouse steps, the cold Manhattan air hit Claire's lungs like freedom. She inhaled deeply, as if she hadn't realized how long she'd been holding her breath. Then a black sedan pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down. A man with silver hair and a face carved from calculation looked out. Claire froze. Dad, she whispered. Charles Prescott stepped out of the car. He didn't smile. He didn't apologize. He held a folder instead. I heard what happened, he said coolly. Impressive performance, Madeline. I did what was necessary, Madeline replied. Why are you here? Charles looked at Claire. Because Brandon owes me money, $2 million, and he put the Park Avenue penthouse up as collateral. Claire felt the ground tilt. That apartment belongs to me now, Charles continued. He defaulted yesterday. Claire's knees went weak. Madeline took the folder from his hand and scanned it once. Then she laughed. It wasn't warm. It wasn't loud. It was dangerous. You really should have checked the county records, she said. She pulled out another document. That property was transferred into a family trust in 2018. Any collateral use requires both beneficiaries' signatures. She held up the page. Claire never signed this, which means Brandon forged her name. Charles's face drained of color. If you pursue this, Madeline continued calmly, I will sue Blackridge Capital for accepting forged documents and predatory lending. Or you can walk away and go after Brandon personally. Silence stretched. Charles exhaled slowly. What do you want? An apology, Madeline said, and for you to leave. Charles turned to Claire. His voice softened, just slightly. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Claire nodded once. You can go now. He did. Madeline turned to Claire and smiled, this time genuinely. Lunch? Claire laughed through tears. Yes. 3 months later, a gallery in Soho glowed with light and quiet excitement. Claire stood in the center of the room wearing red, surrounded by her paintings. Sold tags dotted the walls like small flags of victory. Her exhibition was titled Rebirth. Madeline watched from the corner, pride softening her sharp edges. Her phone buzzed. Disgraced executive Brandon Hale, sentenced to 5 years for wire fraud and embezzlement. She didn't open the article. She didn't need to. Evan approached holding a tablet. The settlement cleared, he said, handing it to Claire. Claire stared at the number. Enough to breathe, enough to build, enough to never be trapped again. It's over, Claire whispered. Madeline lifted her glass. No, it's just beginning. Claire looked around the room at the art, the people, the life she had reclaimed. And somewhere far away, in a cold cell, Brandon Hale finally understood the cost of mistaking silence for weakness. What did you feel most strongly at the end of this story? Relief, justice, or quiet satisfaction? Do you believe Claire's silence made her stronger in the end, yes or no? If you enjoyed this story and want to see more like it, comment 100 below. Tell me which country you're watching from. And if this story moved you even a little, please share it with someone who needs to hear it.